to get from PCO to Virginia.
I watched PMBO's post.
The Selectmen's Meeting for January 27th, 2014 to order.
But,
First order of business, approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Well, they should say 2014. I'm still stuck in 13, I guess.
I'll make the motion that we approve them as read when you're ready.
Second it. Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as read. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. Financials. Before the warrants, $150,372.62. Warrant of $18,161.99. Payroll warrant of $10,827.15, leaving a balance of $121,383.48. Old business. Wreaths Across America transfer.
Karen just asked me to notify you that she had received a first draft back from her lawyer, but there were some things that she immediately recognized as being left out, like us being able to use this room for elections and town meeting and stuff. So she sent it back. Her lawyer was on vacation for a week, and she would be getting something back. She didn't want to wait until the next Selectmen's meeting to meet with you, so she was hoping that as soon as she got it back, we could maybe schedule a Selectmen's meeting for you to meet with her, so we didn't have to wait a whole 2 weeks.
Okay.
So, and she's been in Washington. She's on her way back today, so we should hear something within another day or two.
Okay. Next item is Rick Campbell Water.
And I just wanted to stop in tonight and acknowledge receipt of your letter. I have followed a recommendation from Mike to call John Devon at DOT. He is planning on being in the area probably later this week or next week.
Okay.
So hopefully we can come up with a quick and satisfactory solution to this problem.
Okay.
Although it will probably be until springtime.
All right.
You know, do some digging.
Right.
Or whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Rick.
We'll report back as soon as I know something more.
Okay. Thank you. Next item is Irvin Pinkham, CEO position. This was talked about last week.
Yeah, speak with you tonight.
Okay.
It would be me. You gentlemen have some questions about qualifications and concerns with the state. I've been the CEO for Beals Island now for over 2 years, and currently I am not certified. I work as animal control for 4 towns, shellfish warden for 1, constable for 1, and under all those other trainings I had to go through, the state contacted me and said, here's your day to train, be here. So, stupid me, I assumed the state was the same with everything else, and had a year to be certified. Well, at the end of the year, I hadn't heard anything from the state. So I talked to the new Jonesport CEO, and he said, no, they don't contact you, you contact them. Well, that's nice to know, so I contacted them. And in the process of being in contact with them, they had a major upheaval in the office. Everybody that was in charge moved. They got fired, transferred, whatever. And they finally got it straightened out, and they do know that I am not certified yet. And they finally, I got hold of whoever was in charge, I can't remember the gentleman's name, and he finally sent me the information I need to take. I don't have to take any classes. They sent me the stuff to read, materials I have to read. When I'm comfortable, I go take the tests. One of the questions you gentlemen was what I needed to be certified in. And the basics are some law on case laws that has to be passed. The other 2 are shoreline zoning and land use. That's the basics, that's the minimum required. Whatever else you gentlemen want to be certified in, want the CEO certified in, is extra. Building codes, which most small towns don't have to do the building codes. They switched out, which was part of the problem as well, they switched out to the international building codes. When they did, they got rid of all their information on the internet, on their site for state of Maine codes for buildings. Well, after they did that, they issued a waiver for any town under 2,000 people, then they expanded it to under 4,000 people. So basically, Bangor, Augusta, and Portland have to have building codes. If you build a house in Italy, it's the same safety code going out as a house in one of these towns. The small towns aren't required. If the town wants it required, then it's testing as well. But I am currently in the process of reading up the material. The laws are a little confusing. Some of the lingo is a little annoying sometimes to understand. But they did tell me that I could not keep doing what I'm doing. I've been in contact with DEP several times. Every time I have a question I can't find an answer to, I call somebody. So it hasn't been an issue in over 2 years at Beals Island. And they're all shoreland pretty much. You don't have a lot of shoreland here, but you do have some. So that's, and I said I found out 2 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, 2 folks were looking for one. Didn't know about it before. I'd brought it up before. Didn't know until then. So.
Did Paulus have any questions for you? What's your pleasure?
Philip, being chairman of the planning board, did you hear anything that you would question?
I couldn't hear it.
You couldn't hear?
No, I didn't.
Sorry about that.
No legal issues. I've got no problem with it.
What do you think?
As long as there's no legal issues. We don't have to.
With any luck, it will be certified by spring.
That's what we was worried about, right?
Right.
That's what we was concerned about.
What will you have to be paid?
Yeah.
There was also a question you don't have about paying for classes and whatnot. The testing is all free,
Yeah.
so that's not an issue. And any courses that I want to take above and beyond, what few there are that actually charge, they're really not that expensive. They're something I can cover out of my pocket. I think the most expensive one is $50. So, you know, it's not a big expense to me or anything else. So.
What did we?
How do you get paid for that?
Through Beals Island, they pay me a flat rate fee of $1,000 a year, paid once a year. Well, actually, they split about 3 times, so they're also the ACO. But they pay me 75% of any the building permit fees as well, and that's all they pay. Some years it's good, some years it's it hasn't been too bad. I've only done 2 years.
What did we pay? 12?
12.
1,200.
But that was
That was-
well, and I don't know how the rest of it was. I don't know. With John, that was before my time, so.
And they don't pay any mileage for, you know, driving down and doing inspections or anything, so that's what the fees cover, the time and the...
What are your thoughts, Jan? What are your thoughts?
We paid 1,200, right? We're gonna pay any part of what it was. I think it was, the last time we paid was 1,200, wasn't it? Phil, if you remember. I think it was 1,200.
Well, I thought it got near 1,000, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just flat fee, but
Just a flat fee of 1,200. No part of the building permits or anything. We don't really have that many.
no, you lost $10 from it.
Right.
Hey, Alan, when I was CEO here, we got a flat rate of whatever it was, the stipend was. I think that when I was, I think around 900, and we got all of the money for the building permits, which didn't amount to a heck of a lot of money, but that's what we got it all. And any of the classes that the state had, they paid mileage for us to go.
The state did or the town?
Town.
Town.
But that
What did
was a
you
while
say
back.
again that Beals paid you?
Got a $1,000 flat stipend and 75% of the fees.
I said 35%.
Huh?
I thought you said 35.
No, 75.
75, okay.
Which, you know, if it's a $25 permit, wasn't a lot, but if it was a $400 permit, you get $300 extra on there, which we had a few of those, it helped. But
That sounds reasonable to me, does it, you, Al?
Like another one.
what are you supposed to do with a permit, with a fee from the permit?
The other one that was actually,
Hmm?
the other fellow never put anything in, just a flat fee.
Right. $75 of not much isn't much.
No. No, and originally, they received 100%, right? Dave?
Yeah, this was quite a while ago when I had it. But they just get 100%, I mean, because it doesn't amount to that much. Because the fees for the building here in Columbia Falls aren't that high. I mean, it's only something like $25 on a house. You know? So,
What are the fees, Philip? Does it go by
So much
price?
down, and I think the most expensive is right around $100.
but,
And that'd be over 50,000, 100,000, something like that.
Where's the money go now?
Goes into town.
Into a town account.
Cheaper to live up here. Most towns now are charging, you know, 10 cents a square foot. On anything over 100 square feet. Deals Island, if it's a freestanding building, 10 square feet or less, it's free. If it's over 100 feet, it's minimum $25. If it's attached to an existing structure that's already been permitted, it's $20 for anything under 100 feet, and 10 cents a square foot anything over 100 feet. You guys, like, cheaper to
Go
live
easy,
here.
you're not making any friends.
No, I'm saying it's cheaper to live up here than Beals Island, you know, there's a lot of shorefront property, they think they can afford it, and they can afford to pay. You know, in some places, I know a place down around Poland where it's actually a percentage of the estimated value of the building. I had a friend that built a $400,000 home, his permit was $4,000 before they had, you know, just based on what they, the expected value of the house was, not the size of it. So, it ranges here, there, and everywhere.
What's your pleasure? Do you think you ought to go 75% or 100%?
If we're gonna go 75% of fees, I think we ought to go to $1,000 and 75% of the fees, rather than
Sound all right.
flat $1,200.
Well, a flat total of 12, and let him, that'd be less complicated, wouldn't it?
I think it would be.
Yeah,
Then I'll make a motion then that the flat fee of $1,200 a year.
second it.
Been moved and seconded to pay the CEO $1,200 fee per year. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. Are we going to hire this gentleman?
No, we said $1,200. That's, what about the fee? The fee comes to the town, or he gets?
Yes.
You didn't state that.
Are you willing to do it for that?
How many permits on average do you have a year? It doesn't
We
sound.
had probably 15 to 16 this year, and the most expensive one, I think, was $25. Most of them $10 permits.
Yeah, that's, I mean, if you were talking hundreds of feet, hundreds of permits, inspections, then it'd be, but no, that's fine.
In fact, we've had more this year than we normally have, usually it's 8, 10.
Yep. That's less than Beals, so, yeah, that's, I mean, it's not that big an issue. One of the questions I would ask is, what are you requiring on the inspection? Do you want it before or during and after on them when they're building something, or do you want just show up, make sure the measurement? Addison does it kind of backwards as far as I'm concerned. You go in, you apply for the permit, you get the permit, then the CEO comes out and inspects before you start. They inspect halfway through, especially if you're putting in concrete, and they inspect when it's done. And it costs you $25 every time she shows up. Beals Island, I get out and inspect, you turn the application, I come inspect it. If there's a problem, you try to correct it before the meeting, or you don't show up and reapply, whatever. And then I just come down after it's done. If there's any questions or complaints or whatever, there's no triple inspections.
Right.
What do you do? What have you typically done in the past year for the CEO?
What we usually do is, when you're building something, if your you come in, get a permit, Alan, and you're further enough away from the boundary lines and so forth and so on, we issue a permit, and as far as we go with it. If it's something that's water or property line or someone's got a problem with it, then we have to have a code enforcement officer check it out and make sure we're within our
Okay,
guidelines.
so basically you're saying that the planning board calls the CEO if they want something inspected?
Yes, we let, if
Otherwise
we need
you
anything
don't-
inspected, basically, because we have, anything under 100 square feet, we don't bother to inspect. They don't need permit for it.
Yeah, I understand that.
But anything over that, if they got to be so far from property line, so far back from the road, and
So
and
if
it's
you
water
think
and so
that the
forth.
person might be trying to,
Put something over?
yeah, pull something over on the planning board, you
Yeah.
want to see it, otherwise you don't really have them inspected, is that basically?
That's what it amounts to, yeah.
Okay.
We did have one here a year ago. It was in basically floodplain there, and we had the state man come down, and state issued the permit because that took care of it.
Yeah,
Oh, maps.
floodplain issues are really gonna be a pain in the keister to everybody for a while here, when they're revamping the flood maps.
Yeah, John Collins down.
Yep. I do know you have a couple issues, and I've learned of one of them in the course of being the ACO and having to deal with. But there are a couple of septic issues you guys have that need to be addressed, I know that.
That was usually the plumbing inspector that took care of them.
Well, one is an illegal building altogether.
Huh?
One is an illegal building altogether, and I have not confirmed, but looking at the rumors that both buildings on the property do not have exit septic system. And the other one is a house on another road that, I know the guy next door, and he complained about it. So,
I haven't heard about that.
There's one of them, we never got a building permit on. It's still there.
From,
White,
yes, and then we get another one in town, and then we get the.
yeah.
I make a motion that we hire Irvin Pinkham to be our next CEO.
Second it.
Been moved and seconded to hire Irvin Pinkham to be our next CEO. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. Guess you're it.
Question, will he be hired from the 1st of January to the end of the year? Or will he go from town meeting to town meeting?
Why didn't you ask that before we hired him? It's late now. I think we just hired him. I'd say it's from now until the end of the year.
All right, okay, that makes sense.
Can I
well,
ask
I
you?
know the oaths get sworn in after, whenever, I'm not sure when it was here, I can't remember. But I know the pay's at the end of the year, so, just before Christmas, so.
Rich,
Yes.
You hired Irvin for $1,200 a year. Is that per fiscal year? Or calendar year? Or do you owe, or come town meeting, is this gonna be renewed?
I think it will have to be fiscal year, because we're going to close the books here very shortly. I think he can be sworn in after the books close
It's closed Thursday,
for the next year.
so next week we could swear
Yeah,
you
that's
in.
pretty good timing for me.
Yep.
Right.
We're starting right off the, almost the fresh of the year, so that
Yep.
works.
I mean, otherwise, if you swore him in tonight or whatever.
We pay him now and then pay him later.
Yeah.
Hey, that works for me, too.
I mean.
Never turn it down. That's foolish.
Any other questions?
No.
You got a man, ask him beforehand, will you?
Any complaints, everything, just forward it to the office and then forward it to me. That way there's a record of it to be dealt with. I know the dog issue has been running like nuts this last year. I swear there's only one town on this road, and that's a Tibbetstown Road. Where I bet.
And one like
That one is one I think is about to get shot.
oh,
For going after some kids waiting for the bus.
oh yeah?
That dog is no longer around. So that ended sadly.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you Monday.
Next item is end-of-year processing.
Thursday is the last day of the year. It inadvertently left off the calendar that to close at noon time, so that we could process. I have to close out of Trio, start a new year, reports that need to be done, checks that need to be written so we could close off. I checked with Mr. Grant, as he was the first one in the office. Evidently that is not acceptable, so I need you gentlemen to decide what it is you would like me to do for the end of the year process.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a reminder that the tax bills say the last payment is due on the 31st, which is Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
So
close
anything
on-
that's dated by the 31st will still,
Oh, so if they bring it in on Monday, it's dated the 31st?
if it's been dated for the 31st, then I can back it into.
Question,
Yes.
if one should do that and bring the check in on Monday, does that mean their name goes in the book?
On Monday, it would, because Monday would be well, yes, Monday.
Well, that's the same thing I was just bringing up. 31st is this Friday, and the office is closed, so they can't pay it.
Well, I'd say they probably would have to postmark it or come in Thursday.
Or come in Monday, postmarked.
If,
No,
if there's an envelope that comes in the mail that's been postmarked by that date.
So it was
It's not
sent in the
very-
mail Friday and
Right.
postmarked Friday downtown.
If I could just go on with that for a minute. There is a notice in the post office. Is there a notice in the paper this week? The
No.
effect that the office is closed. So there is the notice in the post office.
No, there's no notice. It's been removed per Mr. Look's request.
Well, I did see one there. And the calendar on your Facebook page says that the office will be open from 8 to 4. To me, I think there are probably going to be people who will come in the afternoon and be disappointed not to be able to pay their taxes. And the office actually should be open for the benefit of the taxpayers of the town. I mean, I think you might all agree that it should be done in such a way as can be convenient. There isn't a warrant for 10 days after the 31st, nor is the auditor going to be here until 10 days after the 31st. So there might be ample time to take care of those end-of-the-year things in order to make it convenient for the citizens of the town, the taxpayers.
I think we're cutting hairs myself, but whatever. I think if you waited up until the last 20 minutes of a town office being open, you're cutting it pretty close. But I suppose there are people that can do that.
The point I was making, though, Alan, was that it's not been officially announced either in the paper or on the calendar on Facebook. And that's what my concern.
Fine with me.
What would happen if we had an ice storm and you had no power in that, and you had to close the office?
I don't know.
I mean,
Same thing.
Close the office. Barring no ice storm, would it be possible, you have an assistant, right?
No.
No, you don't?
No. You gentlemen decided that you would rather not have an assistant, and then if the office needed to be closed, it was closed.
Oh.
That was decided and has been discussed.
That's my memory. Thank you.
Well, that wasn't part of my discussion. It was before I came. brought it up. Nobody said anything to me about it.
Could we, for that special occasion, if we had a town official volunteer to fill in that afternoon, could we do that?
I'm not gonna get into her computer. No way in hell would I do that. Nor would she let me.
Volunteer, is to do an understanding.
Town official, a town official,
To volunteer to do what?
to come in that afternoon.
And do,
Collect taxes.
just for the tax collection?
Yeah.
Well, there's I mean, I could, if the 31st is an issue, then I guess Monday we could either, because the 31st will long since been gone, I could not open until noontime until everything was closed out. That way anything that came in over the mail on the weekend could be processed Monday morning, first thing, before, and if it comes in Monday, then it's after
No,
the end of the year.
Monday morning, you mean, instead of
Right.
closing Thursday.
Instead of closing early Thursday, open Monday after everything's been processed.
Well, if we're going to focus on this 31st, and they have till the 31st, then why aren't they expecting you to be open on Friday? What about those poor people that don't do it at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock on the 30th? They need to do it on the 31st. So are they expecting you to be open on that day? If they have till the 31st to pay at midnight or 4 o'clock or whatever the cutoff time is, how are you going to get by with being closed on Friday?
I think I mentioned we were cutting hairs, didn't I?
Exactly. That's my point. And those same people, if you close at noon on that Thursday, that would whine that you weren't here on Thursday, wouldn't they be whining that you're not here on Friday?
Mr. Chairman, my point was that it's not been advertised. And I think people have a right to be upset. I wouldn't call it whining. I think the taxpayers have a right to speak and a right to be served well. And I don't think it's serving them well by closing the office without notifying them that they have to be here before noon on Thursday. Because many people don't have necessarily the money to come forward much earlier. And the tax bills are not due until the 31st. But we know, as residents of the town and taxpayers, that the office is not open on Friday. We don't know that it's going to be closed on Thursday afternoon.
Yes, Tony.
In the past, I've seen situations like this in different, if a person's on a 4-day work week, and Friday is a good reason to be open, like they have stated, John stated, then perhaps, if it's the board's pleasure and the town administrator, that could turn into a regular work day. She could work half a day in the morning on the processing, take the checks, they come in at 3:59 or whatever they're coming in at, take those checks, and then have Monday off, or Tuesday off, or Wednesday off
But
instead.
that wouldn't be notified, Tony.
What's that?
The people would not be notified.
Notified that
of
she's
that
going to be
change.
here?
At this late date, they wouldn't
That's
be.
just like
Yeah,
closing
okay,
Thursday.
all right, all right.
What's the worst that's gonna happen? You get your name in the book with a star behind it, right?
I mean a lot to some people.
Yeah, it does.
Well, if I could, today's Monday, if you put it on the board out here today, tomorrow morning, and in the post office tomorrow morning, that's 3 days, right? Is that not enough to notify everybody?
Not enough, no.
Evidently not, because.
Evidently
it has
not.
been- I spoke with
Or
Alan
you put a
the
guy
first
on
of
each
last
corner
week.
with a sign up there.
I spoke with Alan because he was the one that was in, was why I spoke with him. And it was posted since then, and evidently that wasn't.
What is the
posted.
time limit? I mean, is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days?
Well,
Just a question.
And we also, I had somebody here the other day at 20 minutes to 8 to pay their taxes. It wasn't open, but I was
But you
here.
took it.
So I let her in. I mean, you know, in a small community where you try to do the best
Right.
for your neighbors, you do what you can. She was on her way to work, that's when she could pay her taxes. I opened the doors, I let her in, and I accepted them.
Very good. Is it the board's decision how many days you've got to notify the town? Is
It's
it a
always been
decision
always been 7 days for any notification.
I mean, can't you ever make an exception to something?
Reasonable.
Reasonable
Warrant
time.
is 7 days.
But
The
we
other
don't-
is reasonable. According to MMA, it's reasonable.
I mean, it is a small town, which is nice, and so most people would get the word if they saw it on the sign or the post office, or a good portion of them anyway.
I had somebody come in today with that same, for that same reason. She said she saw it, so she went
Right.
to the bank, and she got her check
Yeah,
and
yeah.
came in. But whatever the board decides.
Well, I brought it up because I was talked to about it. I didn't know anything about it. I don't get into the post office myself. So, I just like to know what's going on, that's all. But,
What's your pleasure? We're gonna,
There needs to be some time to close out the trio for 2013 and start a new trio for 2014, so that Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever my first customer in February is, that goes into the 2014 trio.
Question, would you be willing to, if the board voted to pay you, come in Friday and do that?
It would be overtime, so for probably for overtime, I would, certainly.
how did you do it last year?
I came in on my day off last year. The things were a lot smoother last year than this year. Things have been very stressed, very difficult. So I
What do
felt-
others, how do other towns, I mean, I know Cherryfield, Harrington, and Addison all close at noon time. What do their citizens do? I mean, do they complain?
I don't know.
I know they all three close, Harrington closes at 11, and the other two close at 12, for the same reason. They
Well,
have
if
trio,
got no
you have to
complainers
close
in
out
those
your
two
book.
towns, they're very lucky.
What was that?
I said, if they have no complainers in those two towns, they're very lucky.
3 towns, and I'm
Oh, 3.
sure they have complainers, but
But in Harrington,
They do what's
taxes
best
are due
for the
much
town.
before this.
Well-
Taxes in Harrington are due the last day of December.
She did it last year, she gave us a day. I would be willing to compensate and hire her on Friday at overtime and have it done then, and that, hopefully, if Nancy's willing, that would please everybody.
never will please everybody, but.
But, right. It's not the 31st, as long as we know that that's the case. But I would be willing to come in for overtime pay on Friday.
So therefore, the office would not be open, you would not be accepting tax money,
Right.
correct?
But I would be here, working on closing out.
Now, if you were here and, a person came on Friday and knocked on the door, would you let them in?
If they had a tax check in their hand, but
Right.
then you run the risk of wanting a registration or a burn permit or a birth certificate.
Sure, yeah.
So,
Can't win.
no, that's not. How long does it take to close out? It takes a few hours by the time we run all the reports we have to, and And that is if the treasurer is willing to come in and write her checks out on Friday as well. You close the report, you pay everything, it just makes everything nice and tidy and neat and easy for everybody involved.
It would only be fair if we were gonna pay you, that we could pay her too, right?
This is true.
Mr. Chairman,
So you're looking at a
Yes.
minimum of 4 hours.
I have one thing I want to bring up because it's more of a personal issue to me. Tomorrow, I have a funeral for a dear friend that we lost, and I believe my wife is going with me. I know she hasn't given the town 7 days notice to close this office, but she's going to go anyway. So, I don't know what that means, but, and I'm sure that someday down the road she's going to be sick. And I'm not going to think she's going to give you 7 days notice. I think it's a good time to come up with some kind of policy on what you expect for this office. When it's to be open, you have set hours, but people have lives. So I wish, for my personal issue with the administrative assistant, you talked about that at this time too.
But the funeral wasn't scheduled.
No.
It doesn't happen that way. And
I
that's
think
tomorrow
I think that
at
might be
2
something the
o'clock.
board should address.
I'm so glad it doesn't get scheduled.
And those signals.
I've missed 1 sick day in 2.5 years, which is unfortunate. I'm very fortunate.
You're lucky.
I am extremely lucky.
Maybe it's time that the board starts thinking about getting a deputy to help in the office where you do have personal reasons that you need to leave, have to leave, and then you don't get into the situation of having to close down the government and not conduct town business. You always have that backup for that. Just an idea, because, you know, who's to say, you know, as Mike said, you've got funerals, you've got sickness, emergencies do come up and people do have to leave, and you should not have to close down your government because we put all our eggs in one basket. Just a thought. And maybe something to come forward to town meeting with too.
How come we didn't, we overlooked this before? You said that we decided not to do that.
Because there's so much to learn. I mean, I've missed 1 sick day. I mean, there isn't a lot of time that I have missed over the last 2.5 years.
But you know your time's running out. You're going
Gee, thank you. And there's so much, you know, so that's why that the board decided at that time not to. It is the clerk's responsibility to find her own deputy, his or her own deputy. According to MMA regulations, it's up to the clerk, should you decide, to find her deputy. So I guess that would be a decision that you would need to make if that's what you want to do.
Is there anything that this town office does that can't wait a day, 2, or a week? Is there anything that you do that can't wait for someone to come back in the next day or a week from now without deathly penalty or anything else?
I don't think so, Mike, but that's my opinion.
I do not believe there's anything that can't wait in that office. Huh? No, there isn't.
Just a
Think
thought.
about it. What have you got to do that day?
Taxes, evidently.
No. They got 6 months of pay those or more. Think about it.
I had an employer as early as when I was in high school, and that was a few years ago. And he impressed upon me one thing that I've always remembered. When you're dealing with the public is always right.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to live by that.
But the public is the masses, not just a few.
That's true.
True?
That's true. That's true.
We've already overdrawn administration this year with all our audits and spending money here and there and all that, so, you know, we'll have to take that before the people next year to get it ratified, I guess. Of course, that money wouldn't come out of this year's budget because it wouldn't be paid until 2014, so.
It's your pleasure.
I guess I'd ask if the treasurer and the administrative assistant were willing to come in on Friday to close the books out. If they are, I say we hire them. Pay their extra wages.
Do we have any thoughts from those two people?
I'm fine with that.
Treasurer?
This is one of those really tough times, and I need to keep quiet and say, yes, I will.
Then I'll make the motion then that we do that, with them being willing.
I'll second the motion. It's been moved and seconded to have the treasurer and administrative assistant come in on Friday morning and close out 2013 and move us into 2014. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed.
At this late date, we can't deal with this bereavement. That's got to happen. As Nancy says, you don't plan on funeral. But I think we've got to do something, and it might be a good time right now to do that. If it's possible, Nancy, to come up with an assistant, someone to fill in for you.
There should be somebody that knows somebody else that knows how things happen. So there should be somebody, I agree with that.
Do they have to be fully trained?
They will have to take the classes in order to do it, just as I did.
Classes, that means to do everything that you do?
EMD classes, they'll have to take, unless
They
tell
couldn't
people
co-
they can't register vehicles on the days that
That's
I'm
what
not
I'm
there.
wondering, if we could have them come in on a substitute basis. When I had a substitute come into my classroom, I never expected that substitute to do exactly what I did. I had plans for them, but very rarely did they ever follow the plan.
And as long as we're willing to tell somebody, or the deputy is willing, when they come through the door expecting to register their vehicle, sorry, you can't do that today. I mean, it's almost easier if your office is closed, they know they can't do it, than to have them come in. I've had people who couldn't because they didn't have proper insurance, and they were not happy, even though it was beyond my control. So that's just something to keep in mind. Is it better for them to come in through and you tell them they can't register their vehicle, or the office be closed and they know they have to come back the next day? Something.
And all the taxes and things that Nancy's responsible for, I mean, everything's in the computer now. I mean, back in your day, well, I don't mean like back in your day, but I mean back when, you had your substitute, and you said they didn't do everything, but everything wasn't computerized. Everything now is computerized. You have to get into her tax base or her things. She's responsible for that. And to have somebody who's not fully trained, she's not going to want to let them into her stuff, nor could you blame her.
I think you're talking about spending a lot of money that you really don't need to spend.
And I think that's why it was decided not to do it before, because of training.
How things go, nobody knows what's going to happen. What if something happened and we're out of that, Nancy can't come in for a while? What are you going to do then? Scramble and try to get somebody to fill that place in? In the meantime?
I think at that point you'd be beyond that. I don't think you could do that on an emergency basis.
Well, but you're going to have somebody that,
What did they do with the other towns, neighboring towns?
Most towns have more than one person all the time.
Yeah.
Even Columbia has a person that comes in one day a week in addition. I'm really a rarity as far as being the only person that works in our office. When I go to our classes and everything,
You save us
very
money.
few. What's that?
You save us money.
And really, if I went back through and looked up all of the days in 2.5 years that this office has been closed because of extenuating circumstances, it's very few.
Would it be possible that there is someone in a neighboring town who works, as Nancy just mentioned, 1 day a week in Columbia, someone that we're willing to assist here, you know, if the need was great for that? I don't know.
We always did have Joyce Grant, right?
I don't think she ever did any computer work, though. If she did, it was very limited.
She registered vehicles and used the computer for that.
So we have a different program now.
Yeah, not the same program.
Yes.
That was when a lot of things were done by hand, too, and the tax receipts were written by hand and so forth.
What would you like to see happen?
Well, I think it's something that certainly needs to be thought about. I don't know that tonight necessarily a decision needs to be made. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea for only one person, no matter what position you have, to be the only one who knows something. Things do happen. However, you deal with it when it does happen. So, you know, I don't know. But I don't think it needs to be decided tonight. I think perhaps let the selectmen think about some possible solutions or choices or whatever, and then it could be discussed, and I don't think a rash decision should be made anyway. It's going to be difficult to find somebody that's going to take the training and take the classes just to come in 1 day every 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You know, like I said, if we look back at what time I've missed, it's not a great deal.
But what if we did the same as Columbia is doing, 1 day a week? What's that going to mean for an additional expense for the town for that one person, 1 day a week?
Whatever the, you know, your wages would be. Right now, I have all of my work gets done all on my own. The only time it would be an issue is
just because you don't get sick.
right. Or nobody dies. I mean, you know.
Maybe chance to keep the office open 5 days a week then. See if we'll get something done.
Any other old business?
What was the foreclosure?
And I didn't get these printed off until
They're just started.
there's only 3.
3.
Two people came in, and one person paid theirs in its entirety, right through till 13. So there are 3 left. Account number 260, that came back. My letter that was recommended after the last meeting came back undeliverable. So I don't know where that gentleman is. But I've heard nothing. And mail correspondence for account number 66 has been coming back. Lien notices, foreclosure notices, that has been coming back undeliverable already.
And these amounts due are just for that 1 year,
1
correct?
year, yes. Yes. And in the past, account number 525 has come forward with something, but I've heard nothing this year. So, it's up to you gentlemen.
Now,
what
is that
you
land
choose.
and
Yes,
buildings?
Yes.
On all 3 of those?
yes. I should have printed up what there is. I know. I can go get it. I didn't think to print up exactly what there is for it. But all three do have land and buildings.
Buildings as they are, they may not be serviceable, but they are
Exactly.
buildings.
Mhm.
Now, I believe there, in one of the places, there is nobody living.
Right.
2 out of the 3, somebody's living in
Yes,
the buildings or trailers or whatever they have, might be.
yes,
Is that the one on the hill?
yes.
Yes, it's there.
Yeah, the steps on living there right now.
So if you go ahead and take those, they're responsible insurance-wise, I believe, correct?
Yes.
If we own them, and somebody's living in them, they're
Technically,
responsible.
technically, the town does own them
Right
already,
now.
but you have 60 days in which to act. And 2 weeks of that have already gone.
There's only so many rooms left over at the Red Barn. Dropping fast. I think we gotta go ahead with what the law says we should do. We gotta foreclose on it.
We don't have any choice.
Don't have any really choice. I got an idea, probably 2 out of those 3 will cost us money.
Did last time to clean up.
Yep. I make a motion that we do what we've done in past practice, and that's put them out for auction, bid.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to put these out to bid. What do we have, 3 weeks' notice? 2 weeks' notice?
2 weeks.
2 weeks'
In the
notice.
case of 2 weeks.
Okay. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed.
Wouldn't you be better waiting your 60 days, though, before you did that, just in case?
But you still, as when 60 days comes, then you have to make sure it's insured, so that doesn't give you time to take care of it. You need it done before your 60 days.
These will go out in the paper with legal descriptions and all that for people that want to bid, or, I should say lots and numbers,
Right,
so
map
they
and
can
lot
come in and
numbers.
find out
Right.
what's owed. And
Yep. The description, and then, you know, how-
have we in past put a minimum bid on?
Yes. Or with the one that I was involved in, we had. One thing, although I guess, one thing that we didn't do last time that does need to be done is transfer tax. And evidently, the town is usually when there's transfer tax, the seller is responsible for half and the purchaser is responsible for half. So you could stipulate that the buyer is responsible for all of it, I would think, but that would be your decision, whereas it's going to be a bid process anyway.
That amount of money, though, for what they'd be bid on, wouldn't be that big an amount of
No,
money.
it would not. So come up with the total of the interest due, I mean, the total of the payments due, transfer tax.
But if you put a minimum bid on it and nobody buys it, then you're gonna get stuck insuring it?
Yep.
So why would you put a minimum? Just in case.
We could just give it away now. That doesn't make sense.
But if you had to, if nobody bought it, then you go through the formalities again, and you're paying insurance on it. Insurance can get pretty expensive sometimes.
I don't think we ever had a minimum on them before. If you want to get rid of those, you're not going to get all 3 years' taxes out of those. Some of them maybe, no, I don't know for sure.
We have in the past, haven't we?
Well, just the one that I was
Just the
involved
one.
The ones I've bought haven't had a minimum on them.
No.
They never
I
have.
suppose if you don't, then you gentlemen decide whether
You have the right
accept
to
it or
reject
not,
or
right?
accept any and all bids.
Is that how that works? Okay. Well, I'll come up with those figures for you guys
But I know
when
Harrington's
they come
had,
in, so you'll know what
Harrington's
they
had
are.
some in the paper, and they've had a minimum bid, I thought. Any other old business? New business being the first item is February calendar. No other meetings planned in February. Budget meeting is in the 1st of March, correct?
I am wondering, though, when I get thinking about it, because the books will have to be printed. I mean, after the budget meeting, you guys will have to have them to review, and they need to be printed and delivered by the 18th of March. So I'm wondering if the last week of February might be a little bit,
We've always had the budget meeting in
it
February.
might be a little bit better time-wise to make sure everything gets done.
I thought we were pushing it myself.
Okay, so perhaps that last week, I mean, if you did it the same night as your selectmen's meeting, you could sign the warrants and do everything all in.
You have an hour before or something.
I think we ought to have it on a separate night.
Separate night?
So we don't
Okay.
jumble up the two. Have it the 25th or the 26th.
On the 25th, Tuesday, 25th?
That give us time enough?
That
You
should
think?
be. And it most likely would have the other, but it's pushing it close.
Well, if you should croak off on us, we'd be in deep trouble, so
Let's hope not.
don't schedule it, okay?
So Tuesday, the 25th at 7 o'clock p.m.?
Okay.
Okay. So I'll add that. So.
I make a motion, we accept the February calendar with that change. Budget meeting on the 25th at 7 p.m.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to accept that with that change. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed. Paperwork from Jim Warden.
Yes, I gave you a copy in your folders. He needs signature. He said he was only really aligned for one, but he said if all three of you wanted to sign it, just says that yes, they will provide services to us this year. I'm not sure if you took time to read it through, or if you want to wait and read it and then stop by the town office and sign that,
I would prefer to do that.
then, you know, but just so that you're aware that it's there. You have a copy.
That's this here.
He's not coming until the 10th, so we have a little bit of time to sign it and get it going if that's what you'd prefer.
Mhm.
Okay.
That would be a contract for this year's services.
No, it's not a contract. It's just that we allow him to go to
To do what?
to do his audit.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
while you're talking about Mr. Wadman, I'll go through you, and maybe Johnny will answer the question. Has the 150 committee audit been all taken care of? Where's the town stand on that?
Have you been to the auditor?
Yes, we went to the auditor as Nancy had scheduled us to go.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you.
All set?
There is no report.
No report yet?
No.
Won't be?
Well, the report, I assume, would be a part of the annual audit.
Yep.
Unless you gentlemen request something different.
That answer your question?
The audit, I guess the audit that's got to be reported in the town book is the one that you accepted back in September. I
As
would
soon as we
think.
get something from him, we check and see if everything is right, I
Mhm.
would suspect.
But I mean, you accepted one back in September.
That we did. Any other new business?
That was a report, that wasn't an audit.
No, that was, you folks stood up here and adamantly
That was a report.
made sure that report was put
Right.
in there.
That was a final report from the committee.
But Rick, there's a difference. The auditor will do his work, and then that will confirm or deny that. So there's a difference.
Any other new business? No policy? Officers and committee? Tony?
Only two things tonight. The next meeting of the Union Hall will be at my house at 6 o'clock on February the 6th. The other item is, I'm hoping you got bids received by the closing date, and I would just like to know what you determined on the bids, so we can move ahead with that.
Mr. Chairman, before you open the bid, I'd like to ask a question. To whom did bid specs go so that they could bid? In other words, what was the, to what audience did
They
the,
went to the three contractors here in town. I believe it was Richard Fourier, Steve Smith, and Quality Construction, Richard Farnsworth. Three bidders.
and who determined that it should go to those three?
That would be the Union Hall Committee.
And then the board.
And then the board voted on that.
And I would challenge the legality of that.
Go
because
ahead.
I don't believe you can do that. I do not believe you can specify an audience for a bid spending town money. I think it's totally illegal.
I doubt it.
You think we should put it out to everybody?
Well, you doubt it. What do you know about it?
I doubt it, I said.
I said,
That's all I said, and I don't want any lip out of it.
If you're not dealing with state or federal money, you don't have to put it out for bid at all, according to MMA regulation. Only with state and federal money do you have to put something out to bid. I don't know how it goes if you...
Was any of this money a result of a grant?
No. We haven't spent the money yet.
I just bring that up because
I think you guys voted it in, and I think that's all that had to be done. You voted it in, you all agreed on it, and that's the way it went.
and you gentlemen chose the three contractors that it would be sent to.
Through their committee, which is our committee, who they voted us in.
May I
Yes.
talk to you? I'm not talking to them.
Oh, good,
You
don't
may
talk to
to
me.
Go ahead.
I don't want to talk to him, so you can't talk to
Okay,
me.
all right.
I am simply saying, in order to protect the town, I don't think it is appropriate to choose three contractors to send a bid to. There are other contractors in this town. There are other buildings in this town.
Who are we protecting the town from? Other
I'm not
contractors?
saying you're protecting the town from anybody.
Well, that's what you just said. You
No, I
wanted to
didn't.
protect the town.
I said there are other contractors in the town. I said nothing about protection.
Yes, you did.
I never used the word. To protect the town, yes.
Well, that's what I asked. Who are you
I'm sorry,
protecting it
Alan.
from?
I'm sorry.
I'm confused.
Well, doesn't if you're choosing to give the bid only to local contractors,
Right.
then don't all of the local builders in this town have a
Who are
right
the
to?
other local builders?
There is one other, at least one other that I'm aware of.
Who is it?
Travis Lesbines is a builder in this town.
I don't believe he has a shingle out. I believe he works
never
with
heard
one
of
of the ones that we put the bid out to.
Well, I don't believe it's necessary to have a shingle out to be a builder.
How's people going to know about it?
Right, I don't understand.
Well,
I'm a builder, but I didn't get it because I didn't want one.
There was another builder in town that didn't want one either.
well, I just suggest that
It wasn't, Alan, if I may address you, it wasn't something that we just pulled three names out of the hat. It was
Right.
discussed at a meeting of the committee that you folks put together and discussed thoroughly before we approached you with those names, which you voted on.
Now, do you
And I don't think, a lot of times, this is a small town, Alan, in a small town, that's how things are done. If we're gonna do things and have lawyers mentioned every time we do something, it's gonna be an awful hard time to get anything done. If a lawyer is gonna be mentioned every time something gets presented to you, it's gonna be very hard.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't mention a lawyer at all, but I think it's just as easy to do things legally as it is to do things
Illegal or legal.
outside
He did
the
not
law.
mention lawyer, but illegal or legal.
What do you two gentlemen feel? How do you feel?
I don't have any idea what the legal issues are with that.
Would you like me to go get the MMA handbook on bids? Or no?
Yes, go ahead.
While she's doing that, Tony,
Yes,
question, when did you plan on doing this?
as soon as you guys pick a contractor, and that contractor, once we have our meeting on the 6th, we notify the contractor, as soon as the contractor can get in there to do it.
How long a project do you think?
I don't know. I don't know.
I wouldn't think it'd be much over a week, week and a half. But I didn't bid on it, so.
The bids that you have, bids that you have may have a time frame in it.
Or if you choose to open it, they may be able to give you a time frame.
I can tell you this, I guess, I only had one interested party once I handed those out, and only one party took interest enough to go down and explore the building and see what he had to do and make sure that his bid was accurate. So, no other person.
Well, I talked to one of them. He told me that he didn't want to bid on it because he offered to do the steps at no labor charge, and it was given to somebody else that bid. So that's what he told me.
And I know who that is, and if I can address that issue, that person said that he would build the steps for nothing, just the material. After the bid was put out to put the steps out, I approached him and he said, "Gee, it's too bad we're paying to do that." I said, "Well, I understand you were going to do." He goes, "Oh no, I was only going to replace a few rotten boards. I wasn't going to rebuild the whole thing." That's not what I was. That was him to me. That was him to me. Maybe he told you a different story too.
It could be.
Maybe we ought to get him here so he can tell us the real story.
There's a lot of confusion about whether the municipality must go out to bids on contracts. There is no state law that generally requires that municipal work be put out to bid. School construction projects must follow the bid rules set in, and then there's a state statute. If a project is funded through a state or federal program, there may be a specific statute or agency rule requiring some sort of bid process. However, these are exceptions to the general rule. The bid process itself has 5 basic steps: decide on the specifications, send out or publish a notice inviting people to bid or to submit proposals along with the pertinent specifications, open and review bids, formally accept the winning bid, write up a contract. So it says send out or publish in the MMA handbook.
Is that only for state?
That's for non-state and federal money. The town money.
Non-state.
Non-state.
It didn't
And then
say,
that was only May.
it didn't say that it had to be advertised.
says send out or publish a notice inviting people to bid or to submit proposals along with the pertinent specifications. To avoid challenges to the final bid award, it is important that all potential bidders receive exactly the same information
Exactly.
for the purposes of submitting their respective bids, which
From
they
what
did.
I see,
copied them.
that was the
Here's the
steps
office.
that you folks followed through our committee. That's what you folks followed, all above board, nothing illegal. So,
What's your pleasure? You wanna open the bid or not? Do you think we followed the rules or not? I guess that's the question.
Sounds like we did, yes. You two fellows are contractors, I'm not. I do think I could probably hold up a hammer handle that's What are your thoughts on it?
Don't see any problem. Go ahead and read it, Jay. Please.
This is from Quality Construction. I submit a bid for $4,250. Do the work at Union Hall. I will meet the requirements set forth on the bid request dated 1/13/14. I do have insurance as requested. Excuse me. This price is good for 30 days from this date, should you need time to decide. Payment to be made at completion of work. Rick Pradsworth, Quality Construction.
What's your pleasure?
I guess I have a question. Where it's going to be heated now, Rick, I guess I can pose this to you. Is this building going to have to be heated for this week and a half, or will you provide some kind of heat, or what?
It'll have to be heated. It shouldn't take any more than a week to do that. I've got two competent guys that'll help me, and it won't take any time. You know, I say it won't take any time. It'll take us about a week. Do I plan on doing it when it's 30 below? No, not really, Bun. You know, yes, I want to get it done. I'd like to tell you gentlemen that with the go-ahead and everything, I'd have it done by town meeting. That's my goal. Now, like I say, that's kind of weather permitting. I mean, you got to use a little common sense. I mean, I could run through 300 gallons of oil down there, I'm sure, if I went down, fired that baby up and let her run. That's not what I plan on doing.
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question for you guys. Does that seem to be a reasonable bid?
From what I saw, yeah.
Yeah. Looking for walls.
Three walls, long wall, floor joist, strapping, blocking, and stuff like that.
If I could, Bun, the committee has given it a lot of thought, and we thought it would be under $5,000, or we're hoping it would be under $5,000 for the funds that we thought it would take. So, hearing that bid, as the chairman of the committee, I'm pretty pleased with that amount.
In the ballpark.
Yes, it's well within the ballpark. It's under what I thought it would come in.
I guess I would make the motion that we accept that bid.
I'll second the motion. Been moved and seconded to accept Quality Construction's bid of $42.50 for what they have specified for work at the Union Hall. All those in favor? 3 in favor, none opposed.
May I ask a question, gentlemen? On payment, I put down at completion. Is it, and maybe this is for Tony too, will the check come through the town or through the committee?
Through the town.
Okay. Okay.
Sam has a question.
I have a question. I was just curious, Alan, do you work for Quality?
Yes,
You do?
sometimes, yeah.
Okay. And, or subcontract?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You'll be working on this job?
No,
Okay.
no. You have a problem with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you did work on this job with Mr. Farnsworth, and where you just voted to give Mr. Farnsworth this particular job and you work with him or for him, I wasn't sure if you're aware of conflict of interest statutes. Just something to review for reference now and for further reference.
I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Al, could I just
Yes,
say
Tony.
one thing? I just want to make it clear for, all the townspeople that the committee that you put together, which consists of most of us are here tonight, that you put together, we're only authorized to work for you three. We don't do anything above what you three authorize. We only present you our recommendations. Nothing more, nothing less. Everything goes through you. Every penny comes out of you, just like Rick's checks come. We do nothing that you're not aware of. I just want to make that point clear.
One other thing I'd like to mention, a few years ago I played basketball down there.
2 years ago?
We would get down, any of you guys that played there, we'd get down, Mr. Richards would send one of us down at 8 o'clock in the morning, we'd turn the heat on, and it didn't depend on, we didn't consider the weather. It might have been 30 below, it might have been 30 above. But, and as soon as we were done, the heat was turned off. Will that same procedure be followed?
I would anticipate, Bun, that if I was working in there every day, because you know how long it takes to warm that up.
Yeah,
When I start that, I plan on doing it on a continuous basis, so I would think I would leave it on
Lower.
low, obviously.
It wasn't very warm at 7 o'clock at night.
I mean, as long as it's 50 degrees or 55 degrees in there, that's fine for working. It hasn't got to be shirt sleeve weather in there.
Citizens, no requests?
Alan, I'm not on there, but could I speak as the road commissioner? It's been brought to my attention that, as you probably know, that the sand salt volume is getting lower. And the question came to me today that might be soon have to make a decision whether we cut back on some sanding or put up more sand. It's not an issue at this time, but we still have 2 good months of sanding issues. So maybe we don't have to make that decision tonight, but might want to think about it, because if we have a numerous amount of events like we've had over this last 3 days, that have sanded numerously and warranted too, we might have to make that decision. And Bun was asking me about signs tonight before the meeting. We discussed some signage coming into town, just letting you know that that's going to happen within the next, I'm hoping within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
if weather permits. I've got the signs made and got them ready to put up, but scheduling has been an issue with the weather, so it will happen within, I'm thinking before town meeting.
Thank you. I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn until February 10th, 2014.
When do you think it's going down in there?
All those in
I'm
favor?
going to be gone, in case we want to keep.
All those in favor, none
Just check with
opposed?
Lloyd.
We take care of all.